Have you ever made a bad decision or suffered bad consequences just simply because of who you were around? When I was in middle school, I wanted to feel like I was on the in crowd, so I joined the school basketball team. Um, there wasn't any reason, like I wasn't particularly good at basketball, but I wanted to be in. I wanted to fit in. So I joined the team and I didn't make the A team. I was on the B team for the less good players. And excuse me, during one particular away game, oh, sorry about that, those who are on TikTok. During one particular away game, our team lost pretty bad. Um, but there was the eighth grade boys team, and I was on the seventh grade boys team. And the eighth grade boys team was just a bunch of delinquents. I mean, they were um, just known for their bad behavior. That was the grade level above us, and they always carried that reputation. So after they lost their basketball game, they decided to trash the locker room of this school that we were visiting. And so they were knocking over garbage cans and vandalizing and doing other things to deface property that I won't mention here, but they were quite destructive, enough that the administrators had to get involved and hand out disciplinary actions, right? So I was called into the office and questioned. And apparently, I didn't pass the questioning because they decided to suspend me as well as several members of this eighth grade basketball team for vandalizing the locker room of the other school. But I didn't intentionally vandalize any locker room. I wasn't angry or anything like that. I was just caught up in the sweep. I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong people. And if you've ever had to suffer consequences for being around the wrong people, you know that it's so important that we be careful who we hang around. In fact, the Bible says the same thing at 1 Corinthians 15:33. I'd like to invite you to join me there. 1 Corinthians chapter 15 and verse 33. There it says, "Do not be misled. Bad associations spoil useful habits or corrupt good morals." So the reality is that if you are with the wrong people or at the wrong time, you can get caught up in a sweep as well. What's worse is they can actually affect you as a person. They can actually corrupt your good morals or spoil your useful habits. People can change you, even if it's just a little bit, because when you're around them, you're around someone who's influencing you, who's having an effect on the way that you're thinking. Their words are energy, and it can bring you up and build you up or tear you down. It can also build up your relationship with God or tear down your relationship with God. And so, as a Christian, you have to think, is this something that's keeping me on my Christian course, which requires discipline? Or is this person at this particular moment making me feel like I don't need that level of discipline, making me feel like I shouldn't try this hard? Are they discouraging me? If we go back to the very beginning of time, at Genesis chapter 3, you have Adam and Eve, the first two humans that were on earth. Eve was given to Adam as a companion. But does that beautiful, wonderful companionship mean that Adam should now prioritize his relationship with Eve over his relationship with God. It was very important that Adam did not prioritize anything over his relationship with God, but we know what actually happened. After Eve was deceived by the serpent, she ate of the forbidden tree. That meant that she was now on a course to die. That meant that now she would grow old and she would not have everlasting life anymore. It also meant that she was no longer a good associate to Adam. Think about it. Could this corrupt Adam's good morals? If he followed her, yeah. And he did, didn't he? Here, this perfect man was faced with a moment where he saw his wife in possession of this fruit that he knew he was not to eat. He knew that it would cause him to die. But he prioritized his relationship with Eve over his relationship with God. God, who had given him everything, who had never lied to him. God. Sometimes a person that's in our life that we might love or trust, a spouse or a best friend, can be used to influence us to do wrong. Sometimes a person that's close to us can lead us astray or corrupt our good morals. So your love for this person should never blind you to the truth. It should never blind you to your love for God, your relationship with God. You should never prioritize your relationship with a person. The desire, the tendency to want to please a person or appease that particular connection. You should never allow that to cause you to sever your connection with God. When Adam did that, he doomed all of us to die. All of his offspring would now be born imperfect because he decided to choose his relationship with Eve. And that was futile because Eve eventually died and he eventually died. And now all of us were doomed to death as a result of their decision. So in modern times, sometimes we can have a partner, friend, close associate who could lead us away from God's word, not towards it. But remember, this person doesn't necessarily have to start out as bad. A lot of times they're a friend, family member, and maybe they encouraged us at first. Maybe they were at some point a good person, but they got corrupted the way Delilah got corrupted. If we go to Judges chapter 16, verse 4, we have the opening of the story of Samson and his relationship with Delilah. Now, Samson was so special because he was given super strength. And this was to bring praise to God, the true God, Yahweh. And all of Yahweh's enemies would try to oppress the Israelite people, and Samson was able to act as a guard, like a check, to keep these oppressors from getting too oppressive because he had so much super strength, no one uh, could actually stop him or mess with him. So we're in Judges chapter 16. And we're looking at verse 4. And it says, after that, he fell in love with the woman in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah. And so the lords of the Philistines approached her, Delilah, and said, trick him and find out what gives him such great strength and how we can overpower him and tie him and subdue him. For this we will each give you 1,100 silver pieces. That was quite a lot of riches. Delilah later said to Samson, "Please tell me where your great power comes from and what can be used to tie you and subdue you." Now, Samson didn't just give up the goods, so he decided to throw her off and made up a fake story. So at verse 7, Samson said to her, "If you tie me with 7 fresh bowstrings that have never been dried out, I will grow as weak as an ordinary man." So the lords of the Philistines brought up to her 7 fresh bowstrings that had not been dried out, and she tied him with them. Now they set an ambush in the inner room, and she called out to him, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson," as if she's his friend. At that, he tore apart the bowstrings just as easily as a thread of flax comes apart when it touches fire, and the secret of his power did not become known. Then Delilah said to Samson, "Look, you have fooled me and told me lies. Now tell me, please, what can be used to tie you?" At this point, Samson could see that Delilah was trying to trap him. So he decided to make up another story. He says, at verse 11, "If you tie me up with new ropes that have not been used for work, I will grow weak as an ordinary man." So Delilah took new ropes and tied him with them and called out, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson." All the while, the ambush was set in the inner room. At that, he tore them off his arms like threads. After that, Delilah said to Samson, "Up until now, you have fooled me and told me lies. Tell me what can be used to tie you." Then he said to her, "If you weave the 7 braids of my head with warp thread." So she fixed them with a pin and called out to him, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson." So he woke up from his sleep and he pulled out the loom pin of the warp thread. And now she said to him, "How can you say I love you when 3 times you have fooled me? You have not told me the source of your great power." Because day after day she kept, oh, I'm sorry, because day after day she kept nagging him and pressuring him. He was weary to the point of dying. Do you see what Delilah's doing here? Do you see the manipulation? She keeps saying to him, "You don't really love me." She's taking the relationship. She's saying our relationship here should be the most important thing to you. But apparently it's not because you lie to me and you throw me off the course and you tell me these fake stories and you're not telling me the secret. And his secret was that he had never cut his hair. And if he were to ever cut his hair, he would actually lose his strength. Samson knew that Delilah was trying to trap him. But Samson was stronger than anyone else. So whenever the Philistines tried to get him, he could beat up the Philistines and kill them like it was nothing with his bare hands. And he had done it several times. So Samson may have gotten a little bit overconfident. But what it says here is that at verse 4, he was in love with Delilah. And then in verse 16, because she kept nagging him and pressuring him, he was weary to the point of dying. He's getting tired. He's getting weak. Started to feel like life wasn't worth living. Now, please try to understand how this can feel. When you are in love with someone, when you prize, when you cherish this person, and now your relationship isn't good anymore because this person is mad at you, sad by you. The person's telling you that their life is worse because of you. They're so sad, they're so hurt, and they tell you that it's your fault. And you feel like, geez, if I just tell them, then at least they will know that I love them because I do love them. And they're accusing me of not loving them. It can hurt to feel like people don't see you as you really are. And that's where we can get caught with these friends, these bad associates, because we care about what they think of us. We want to please them. We don't want them to feel sad or upset, to be depressed because of us. We want to fit in. We want to be accepted. Perhaps Samson wanted things to go back to how they were before, where it was just love between them and things were just good. But whatever the case, Samson made the worst choice that he could have made at this time. At verse 17, it says, "So he finally opened his heart to her, saying, 'A razor has never touched my head, because I am a Nazarite of God from birth. If I am shaved, my power will leave me, and I will grow weak and become like other men.' When Delilah saw that he had opened his heart to her, she immediately summoned the Philistine lord, saying, 'Come up this time, for he has opened his heart to me.'" Look at the evil of this other person. Instead of saying, "Wow, this person has really opened up to me. I should, you know, provide support for them. I should protect them. I should care for them." No. She immediately said, "Yes, I'm going to get that money. I'm going to succeed at bringing this man down." Think about that. This is the way that this woman thought. Good, good. He's prioritized me. Now I can destroy him. And so she summoned his enemies. And so the Philistine lords came up to her, bringing the money with them. And she made him fall asleep on her knees, verse 19. Then she called the man and had him shave off the 7 braids of his head. After that, she began to have control over him, for his power was leaving him. Now she called out, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson." He woke up from his sleep and said, "I will go out as of the other times and shake myself free." But he did not know that Yahweh had left him. So the Philistines seized him and bored his eyes out. Then they brought him down to Gaza, bound him with 2 copper fetters, and he became a grinder of grain in the prison. That was it for Samson. They gouged his eyes out so he couldn't see anything anymore. And they put him in prison to work as a grinder of grain. Samson never got his eyesight back. He ended up committing suicide. And that was it. For all the glory he was bringing to Israel, for all that super strength, he had lost it, and Yahweh had left him because he prioritized this relationship with this person who was so important to him over his relationship with God. He left God. He betrayed God. And as a result, he betrayed not only himself, but he got left by God. Imagine having super strength, but he fell due to his emotional connection with this person, with Delilah. She asked him again and again about his secret. So he saw the warning signs. He saw that she was trying to trap him. He might not have known there was literally an ambush in the inner room, but he knew that she was trying to figure it out. Some people don't actually love you, they love what they can get from you. Delilah pretended to love Samson, but she was thinking about that money. She was thinking about her status in her community, her family status in her community. She was paid to destroy him. She was a secret agent against him. And we can have secret agents against us too today. People who we care about, who we love, could be used against us. They could be influenced by the world, other people, or Satan, the devil. And we could lose our power, our vision, our freedom, like Samson did, all because of one bad associate, one toxic person. Some friendships look harmless at first. We might feel like we've got the strength, the power, the spiritual strength. But over time, they can actually drain us of our strength and cause us to compromise our values. So, how can we handle this if somebody who was once good for us suddenly becomes bad for us? How can we maintain our strength, our integrity? Well, let's notice the example of a different perfect man, someone who did keep his integrity, and that would be Jesus at Matthew chapter 16, verse 21. Jesus also had friends, one of which was Peter, a disciple of Christ. And one particular time, um, Peter kind of became a bad associate to Jesus because Jesus had his purpose that he was to make a sacrifice and to suffer and die. And Peter thought that he was being nice, but at verse 21, we're at Matthew 16:21, it says, Jesus began explaining to his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things from the elders and chief priests and scribes and be killed, on the third day be raised up. At this, Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him, saying, Be kind to yourself, Lord. You will not have this happen to you at all. But turning his back, he said to Peter, Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me, because you think not God's thoughts, but those of men. In this case, Peter probably didn't think that he was being satanic. He probably thought that he was being nice or comforting. He told Jesus to be kind to himself, but that was contrary to God's will for him at this time. Jesus was now to sacrifice himself, and Jesus was teaching his disciples what was to happen to them. He was giving them prophecy. So imagine the boldness of Peter to go against that prophecy and say, No, no, no. At this point, notice that Jesus immediately called Peter out as a bad associate. And he said, You're not going to corrupt my good morals. Get behind me. In other words, you and I, we're not friends right now because you the way that you think is not God's thoughts. That is the example for what we must do. Imagine if Adam had done this with Eve. Hey, you're eating the fruit? He can't say, Get behind me, Satan, because he didn't know Satan at that time. But he could say, Get behind me, human, because what you're doing is against God. We have one rule. There was only one rule in the Garden of Eden. There weren't 10 commandments or hundreds of laws, just one. Don't eat the one tree. And here Eve is eating the one tree. Adam could have easily said, This is not of God. I choose my relationship with God. I'm not going to let you corrupt my good morals. But he didn't. He followed Eve. Easily, Samson could have followed this same course like Jesus and said to Delilah, Get behind me. All you want to do is find my weakness, find my weakness, find my weakness. That's not of God. I have this strength for my God, Yahweh, to protect and to praise my God and his people. Why? Why do you want to find the weakness? Why do you keep calling out to me like my enemies are coming and waking me up? I'm tired of you. Either cut this out or we're done. That would have been better than what happened, right? Do you have the strength to be like Jesus? Because if we're really real, when you're in an actual situation and you have to speak out against someone and say something directly to their face that's going to contradict them or ruin the moment or create awkwardness, it's a little difficult, isn't it? Can you admit that it can be a little hard to just call someone out or to go against them? One particular program I saw was pointing out that many commercial airline crashes are because the co-pilot feels afraid to speak up to the pilot and tell the pilot that the pilot's making a mistake because there's that awkwardness, that feeling like, and so they're just kind of softly saying things on the black box recording. They can hear the co-pilot saying, are we a little bit low? Are we a little bit off course? Maybe are you reading the instrument wrong? They're just being really soft, really quiet, really passive. And then what happens? The captain ignores their soft pleas. The co-pilot has controls in front of them. They could take over just in case of an emergency, like if the pilot were to be wrong and they were about to crash, or if the pilot was to pass out. They have controls right in front of them, but they don't take the controls and they don't speak too harshly, and then crash. And it happened again and again because they were afraid to speak up and to speak out. So what Jesus did, it took bravery. Do you have the bravery to do that, to speak up and to speak out, to communicate, or to leave someone behind because they're no longer a good associate to you? Remember that Peter started out as a good associate. Now he was not one. But Peter was able to correct his course and become a good associate again. But that wouldn't have happened if Jesus would have followed Peter instead of continuing to prioritize his relationship with his God. So we want to seek out good relationships, like the relationship David had with Jonathan, the relationship that Jesus ultimately had with his disciples. Those were good relationships. But we cannot be afraid to cut ourselves down to zero. We have the important job of making sure that we stay close to God. And that's at all costs. So even if you have to cut out people in your life temporarily or permanently, and even if that means for a while, even for years, you have one friend or even zero human friends, you know that you now have only good associations because beside yourself, you have your relationship with Christ, with his Father Yahweh. All the angels are looking down. They're proud of you and your example. And now you're in a position as a good associate to be a good associate to someone else so that you can encourage them and you can have good communication between the two of you, something that builds you up, that can prevent disaster from happening. Like the pilot Sully, it was noted that in his black box conversation before their near plane crash, when he successfully landed his commercial plane on a river, he said to his co pilot, "Do you have any ideas?" He was the captain and he was willing to listen. that's a good co-pilot to have. So we can find good associates as well, but let's make sure that we are ourselves staying healthy by eliminating any bad associates that could spoil our good morals.